Rev up your engines! Alright, today we got a Jeep's got some weird electrical problems. To begin with, it's giving us information in French. Parlez-vous François? And the Jeep says, oui, oui. Let's stick this D9 scan tool, plug it in, see what we can do. Special functions. Let's check out instrument cluster. 2013, so we'll pick that. Well, so we've learned one thing, even though we can't read the mileage, this thing has 31,264 miles or 50,314 kilometers on it. So that's good information because people often lie when they sell vehicles. Hey, it's a 10-year-old vehicle. Who'd believe that it had that kind of mileage? But it does because it's a Jeep. And people do off-road stuff. It's, for example, this guy took it to Moab, Utah, but he didn't drive it there. He trailed it there, and they drove it around in Moab, and they trailed it back. Well, now we know the real mileage, so let's go to language change. Unfortunately, this machine doesn't work with Chrysler products, so that's not going to work. It won't stop speaking French.
Assistance routière, configuration ou didacticiel.
I don't speak French, but I heard configuration. If I had a French speaker, maybe they could tell me which buttons to push to put it back into English. We got a catch-22 here. It's in French and one in English, but the directions are coming out in French. No, it's still reading in French, and there's no odometer reading. We read how much is 32,000 something miles, but it won't say here. So, you're supposed to be able to push these buttons, but as you can see, you push the buttons, nothing is happening. This isn't working. Let's see if the horn blows. The horn doesn't even blow. There's probably no power coming to the steering wheel. So, the horn's not blowing. The menu doesn't work. The cruise control doesn't cycle on and off. So, we can't cycle through the menu to change the language because it's not doing anything. We're going to go under the hood where these often have problems. And on these relay systems can go bonkers. You can see this thing's been rewired 7 ways to Sunday here. So we're going to have to check all of this out. But before we go through that rat's nest, I found a better scan tool. Here's my auto. It's a small tool. It's a Maxicom MK808Z. And look, it does language change. The Spanish and French. We'll look at it. And what does it say? Language is French. Press OK to change settings. OK. We want it to English. Okay, we'll see if it'll work. And voila! Door's ajar. It now works. Well, at least we got it in English, and this Autel scan tool actually cost quite a bit less than that other one did. So these Autel guys are doing some pretty good stuff. So at least, now we got it reading in English, but that didn't fix any of this. We're trying to get the odometer to read up here. This doesn't work. Horn doesn't blow. Well, at least it's speaking English now. Now we got a test light here. Got it hooked up to the battery. Let's pray it's got a blown fuse or something. So we'll turn the key on. And the relay and the power for the steering wheel and the horn's all over here. So we're going to test. Maybe we just have a blown fuse. So here we go. That one's got power. That's got power. That's got power. It beeps when it has power. That one's good. So it's no blown fuse here. What a shame. But as you can see, this thing is a rat's nest. People have cut wires, spliced wires in. We really don't know what some fool has done with this thing. But before we pull our hair out, let's look for loose connections, especially ground wires. Now check it out. These are loose as can be. You can wiggle them all over the place. So we're going to tighten them up. Now we'll check some grounds. There's a ground here. You can hear it beeping. And you can see it's at 0.0 and it's green. That means the ground's working when it's green. When you have a good ground, it's 0 when it beeps. But if you have a bad ground, as you can see, it's 0.0, but it's not green in the middle. There's a bad ground and there's a good ground. The good ground is green in the middle. A bad one, it's white in the middle. Well, I fixed the bad grounds, but still there's no power going to the steering column. And with this rat's nest of relays, cut off, wire spliced in. What the heck, it's an off-road Jeep anyway. And hey, we started up. Runs perfectly fine. And with all these modifications of the tires and the suspension, you can see traction control system doesn't work anymore, neither do the airbags. Runs good. It's a good off-road Jeep. You want to make this thing road legal? That's another story entirely. This is made for off-road. When it went to Moab and rode in the desert, it was trailered to Moab, then it was driven around there, and it was trailered back to Tennessee. I know that's the real mileage, 30-something thousand miles, because my machine shows it. But it won't show on the dash. Dash has got a bunch of dead stuff with all that wiring that's been messed around with. Why spend a fortune just to get that stupid light on. You want to show by the mileage? If you're selling it to somebody, you hook up a nice scan tool. It'll show the mileage that the vehicle actually has. It would be a bear going through the whole vehicle trying to figure out why the odometer's not working. Now the speedometer works, it shows you how fast you're going. It just doesn't display it. The computer is counting it as you drive. It shows it going up, so it's the real mileage. But fixing something like that, not worth a headache for an off-road vehicle. Sure, it's 10 years old, but it's only got 30-something thousand miles on it. A lot of these things don't get that much mileage. The engine, transmission's in excellent shape. You're really not going to go through all kinds of headaches just to get the stupid odometer reading when you can read it on a scan tool. If you are going to sell it, like I say to somebody, you say, look, got 30-something thousand miles on it. You could even drive around with them and they could see the mileage will go up. Drive a couple miles, it'll be a couple more miles as you go down the road. You're never going to put this thing back to stock. Who cares if the odometer doesn't read? Speedometer tells you how fast you're going. The computer counts it and it runs pretty good. Hey, you're going to be bashing this thing up like the other previous owners did, so find something like this. Hey, just don't attempt to turn it into a street legal vehicle unless you're willing to spend a whole bunch of money. Or unless you live in a state like Tennessee, they do their kind of inspections. Hey, it goes down the road, the brakes work, the turn signals work, so the ancillary stuff doesn't work. What the heck? And here's some bonus questions and answers. Jonathan Sheehan says, Scotty, do you have a video about rear main seal? I got a 1990 G20 with dripping oil. There's a product out there called AT205 Reseal. It's made by a company in Chicago called ATP, Automatic Transmission Products. You can buy a bottle of that stuff. Pour it into the engine oil. I'm assuming you're talking about an engine oil leak. That'd be the rear main seal of the engine. It can stop them from leaking. And if it does, every time you change the oil, add that into the oil change. One bottle of ATP 205 Reseal. And I've seen them stop them leaking forever because the only way to fix it is pulling a transmission off or taking the engine out of the car and then putting a new seal. The seal doesn't cost squat, but pulling an engine or transmission costs a fortune. And a lot of times the sealer works. Now, if you're going to try the sealer, first change the oil and filter, then put the sealer in because it works best, of course, with clean oil. Adam says, Scotty, what's your opinion on a 2010 Volkswagen Passat 2.0 turbo with 80,000 miles for $4,000? Depends how it was taken care of, because one of the worst engines ever made for falling apart, blowing up, burning oil if the oil wasn't changed correctly. I've seen people with 140,000 miles on those, and that's only got 80, and they still run great. But these are people that religiously change their oil every 5,000 miles with full synthetic oil. If somebody didn't maintain the vehicle, forget it. I've had people buy those things with 80,000 miles. Previous owners did not maintain them. They burned oil like mad and the engines blew up because it's a four-cylinder with a turbo. So if you're thinking about buying one of those, gotta get a mechanic like me to check it out before you buy it. Otherwise, all bets are off. You could get a junker. It can be burning oil. It could be on its last leg. The transmission in those things, if it's an automatic, man, when they break, they can cost $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 to fix. So you definitely want a mechanic to check out beforehand. Just off the cuff, though, I'd say I'd never buy one myself. Jerry Alphonse says, Scotty, what are your thoughts on a 2021 Honda Accord 1.5 turbo? Okay, Honda makes great cars, but that's a 1.5 liter turbo. It's a smaller engine with a turbo. I'm not a fan of smaller engines with turbos, but it is a Honda, and they do make good engines and good turbos. They are not notorious for having too many problems. But some of those earlier Accord 1.5 turbos had oil dilution problem. The fuel was getting into the oil. If you're looking at one, have a mechanic check it, of course, before you buy it. Have him check it for oil dilution. If he says, yeah, it's got oil dilution, it's got a lot of gasoline in the oil, don't buy the thing. I've had people bring it, they change the oil regularly. They don't seem to have any problems then, but you would want a guy to check it out. See, if it does have oil dilution, I wouldn't buy it. Beat Eater 100 says, Scotty, how long do good quality spark plugs last? Well, here's the thing. They have so many different types of spark plugs. The regular ones that were copper when I was a kid, they were only good for maybe 20, 30,000 miles tops, right? Then they went platinum, iridium, now they have even fancier ones, but the iridium ones are relatively common in a lot of late model cars. And I've seen iridium plugs last over 200,000 miles. If your car doesn't burn oil, runs perfectly fine, I've seen them last that long. Because the iridium is so hard that it doesn't erode. And it's not just erosion of the spark banging on it. When it bangs, then it burns all the gasoline air mixture, right? And that's corrosive to the inside of the spark plug too. They can last a really long time if your engine's in good shape. If it's not, of course, it'll clog up with burnt carbon. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.